Welcome back to Talk Tuesday, a series dedicated to empowering youth and families and community through real conversation that inspire growth and action. This series is brought to you by Safe Foundation Inc., where advocacy means education for the betterment of young minds. I'm Eleni Alvarez, your host and peer educator here at Safe Foundation. And this October, we're going to be focusing on something that is not always easy to talk about. We're going to be talking about absolutely necessary bullying prevention, and this is deep connection to mental health. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, and over the next few weeks, we're going to be creating a space where the truth is told, voices are heard, and healing begins. Whether it's bullying at school, cyberbullying online, or harmful behaviors that got unnoticed, and we're going to be breaking it all down. What it looks like, how it feels, and what we can do to stop it. Bullying doesn't just leave bruises, it can leave scars on confidence, mental wellness, and self-worth. But here's the truth, we can change that by learning how to recognize signs and stand up for ourselves and others, and build environments rooted in kindness and respect. We become part of the solution. This month's episode will include honest conversations, practical tools, and expert advice, and the real stories that remind us you're not alone, you're worth it of respect, and together we can rise above bullying. Over to you, Amaya.
Everyone. Um, my first question is describe a time when staying calm diffused a possible bullying escalation.
Look, when that bully be persistent, they be on you. When you try to walk away and be silent and ignore them, they keep coming back. They will make themselves known and they will not stop until they get that reaction. And that's what escalates it. Because until they get that reaction, they're not going to stop. They're going to make it bigger and bigger until you finally crack and you do something. But that's what they want. They just want a reaction.
So are you saying like there's not really a time where you can be calm to diffuse a bullying situation?
No, I'm not saying all bullies. I'm saying some bullies because some bullies are just doing it because they can. If you shut them down and not give them what they want, then a lot of them will leave. But there are some of those bullies that are really persistent in what they do, and they will not stop until they get that.
I get that. I feel that. Um, I will say I have seen instances where students have taken a calm approach against a bully. Um, and again, it is exactly what Lamar says, right? Every bully is different. There's always a different situation, always something different happening, which is why you can't approach it in the same way all the time. However, um I've seen where, so I think this is where we oftentimes have to look at why are bullies bullying? What made them the bully? Sometimes it's an outlet. They're looking for attention. How do we choose to give them that attention? So typically when you think about a bully, it's about an assertion of power. Somebody that feels like I can beat up on you. You're too small, too tiny to beat up on me. And so I have some sort of power over you. And it makes me happy to see that you're fearful of me. Right? That's typically what you get from most bullies. Um Now when you take it and you flip the script, that calm approach. Sometimes bullies just want to be recognized and heard or seen, or being able to like express how they feel, but not really knowing how to express how they feel. And so if you take an approach of, I'm not going to yell at you, I'm going to talk to you. For some bullies, it may change their trajectory. But to Lamar's point, some bullies are very persistent. And it takes for you to stand up to that bully in order for them to learn to back down. They keep coming because you don't stand up to them. They keep coming because they know you're fearful and you're running away. But the day that you stand up to them, you're taking your own power back. So it kind of builds a different precedence for them. But I have seen where some students have taken a calmer approach to a bully versus just coming back and I'm gonna fight you or I'm gonna scream and yell at you. That they've been a lot calmer in how they approach the person that bullies them.
Makes sense. My next question is, how can students learn to speak up when they're scared of retaliation?
I'm gonna go last because I know that this about to be good.
I love this question. The speaking up. Let's talk about why students don't speak up outside of retaliation. So, Lamar, you're a young one. I know you're
Right?
but you're a young one.
I'm a young unk.
What are some of the reasons y'all don't speak up? And I'm talking outside of retaliation. What makes you guys stay silent?
I feel like a lot of times it's that a lot of the bullies in my situations have had some type of authority figure over them that allows them that power. So they're afraid that something else is going to happen to them if they stand up to the behavior that they're experiencing because this person has someone over them. Now, me being bullied constantly over the years, I've been in this situation. See, fifth grade, right? There was a kid whose mom was a teacher at the school. But the thing is, they would let all the things he was doing go, and he was bullying multiple kids. They just let it slide. And when you try to like let the officer do something about it, and you let the trusted adult know they wouldn't do anything about it, they punish you. So I feel like they're scared of that pushback for at least trying to say something about it, and they'll get dismissed and punished for trying to say something about it. I think that's part of the problem.
So I heard multiple things, right? So I heard the retaliation, I heard fear. And when we talk about authority, right? It's not that the kid had authority, it's that there was other people in authority that backed up the bully.
Correct.
And so, now when we talk about that retaliation, we're talking about retaliation on two sides. Retaliation from the bully, because a lot of times when students speak up, the bully comes back twice as hard because they know that you went and said a thing. Now we're talking about retaliation against authority figures, those who you're told to go to and tell it to. Now you have to worry about being retaliated against when it comes to that. So I think it is a twofold piece. But what I will say to students to help them not be afraid of speaking up, keep speaking until somebody listens. Somebody will eventually listen. And when I say like until somebody listens, talk to multiple people. Don't stop at the teacher who continues not to do anything. Go to another teacher. And if it still continues to escalate, you start talking to those in the office. Who are the administrators? Because you guys have deans, you got assistant deans, you got principals, you got the admin, you got the nurse. Talk to everybody in that front office. Because eventually you're going to run into somebody who's willing to do something. But the most important piece, you guys, talk to your parents. Because sometimes your parents have no clue what's happening inside of the school. They have no clue that you said a thing to a teacher or you said a thing to other kids. They don't know if you don't tell them. So start talking to your parents. If you feel like mom and dad aren't listening, talk to your auntie and your uncle. Do you have a best friend that maybe your best friend's mom is that person that's willing to go to the school? Keep talking until someone listens. And I think a lot of times our students get frustrated because they started with the teacher who does nothing. So now they feel like there's no point in saying it again. But there is a point to saying it again. Keep talking. Changes don't come overnight. And like, even when we think about, like, we hear the saying often, right? Be the change you wish to see in the world. When you want to change a thing, it doesn't happen because you spoke about it once. It happens because you spoke about it several times, you put together a plan of action, and then you went to execute it. Sometimes you won't see that change in a day. You won't see it in a week. But a month or two from now, you might. So keep talking until someone listens.
That was really good. I think something else that can sometimes stop kids is like, especially if you're having to repeat the story over and over, like I think it can be like embarrassment or just like hoping that it'll go away. And like these people that are maybe doing this bullying, like there'll just be a level of like acceptance eventually and everything will die down. So I think that could stop kids a lot from like going to their parents or just speaking up in general. Um, So yeah. But my next question is, hmm, what frightened you the most about speaking up when you witnessed bullying?
So you're saying when the bullying situation was not our own, but when we witnessed somebody else being bullied, what
Yes.
frightened us the most?
Mhm.
Okay. I'll go back like to when I was in school. I think what frightened me the most about speaking up against someone else who was bullying, those kids was twice, they were twice as large as me. At that time, y'all, I was like a little toothpick. And I'm like, listen, they gonna come after me. I think that is what stopped me from saying a thing. But then I found other ways of telling it. So I'm a person, right? I used to love to write. Writing was my jam. Like I would always write things. I would tell it in a note. So you write the thing that happens, you say who did it, right? Oops, I dropped that note on the floor. And it just so happened to be by the teacher's foot. Did I say it out loud? No. And chances are, like, if the teacher knows you, like, they know your handwriting and all that stuff, so they know who left the note. But again, I feel like there's so many ways that we can share a thing if we feel like we're afraid. Writing was my outlet, so I used writing to kind of be the one to tell a thing that happened to somebody.
See, and sometimes you gotta get a little creative with that and your ways of trying to get that out there and with that change because I definitely understand that fear. I've seen it happen a million times because these huge kids are trying to bully these smaller little kids and they're just like, you see him? I'm not dealing with that. But that is definitely fear. A fear that I've gone through is the fact that seeing that it's not just me getting bullied by the same kids. It's like, what if I try to stand up for him, he comes back at me a million times harder, and I take the fall for trying to help another kid because being selfless is all good, but at the same time, you also have to worry about yourself while you're trying to help another kid. So it's like, how is this going to affect me in the long run? And if it's going to really benefit to try to do that. But even then, at least it's gonna be good if you do that you helped another kid get out that situation. It's really just weighing the pros and cons there. Knowing that you're playing that game with the same person that's going after you with a different kid.
I love the part that you said, right? You have to also think about your safety, right? And so I think sometimes when people think, oh, what's the most heroic thing I can do to save someone from getting bullied? And the idea is interject yourself in the midst of a kid being bullied. While that may work for some, that is not everybody's standpoint, right? But you can go and get a teacher, or you can go and get administration and allow them to interject themselves between that student and the bully. I think even sometimes it's okay to like tell the adult, I'm being bullied by the same kid, and so I don't want my name thrown in the middle of it. Because I know sometimes they ask you guys for statements, right? Hey, can you come and write this statement? And like you sitting in the office, and then here comes the bully. So now the bully know it was you that said it. And I know that sometimes turns kids away from saying a thing or stepping in when they see someone being bullied. It's okay to tell the administrator, like, I don't want them to know that it's me coming to say a thing because I'm scared or I'm fearful. You guys, before you ever even talk to administration about giving a statement, it's okay to say, can you call my parent? So then that way you feel safe, or you feel protected, or you feel at least that you have somebody on your side while you do a thing. I know it's a very scary situation, especially when you don't know what the person that bullies is capable of. So I think again, like you bring up a very good point about safety, understanding your safety first. Are you safe when you're getting ready to do a thing? I would never tell a student to jump in the middle of another kid being bullied, because that bully will turn on you. And now you are now placed in an unsafe situation. But what I will say is, get that adult's attention and make the adult aware of what's going on so they can interject themselves and be in the middle of it. But safety is always the first priority.
Now, what you said brings me back to a time of personal experience back in fifth grade. Because remember, at the end of the year, right, it had gotten to a point where you had gone up there. And next situation, you literally told me to, next time he messes with you, since they're not going to do anything, take matters in your own hands. And I'll tell you, at that point, it had died down, he had stopped. But he was almost real close to getting that. So, yeah, it almost happened.
Understood.
But the point is for it to not get to that point, and for your administration and the front office to actually do their job correctly. I hope that's the situation, and no one else hopefully had to go through the same thing I did with that, because that situation is very sad, knowing the fact that the people that are supposed to be in charge of everything are not going to do anything about the one kid that you know is causing problems. And they were very aware. Multiple kids that came up to them and telling them about, oh, this kid did this, he meant it with me, all that, and they refused to do anything.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's very sad when administration just kind of fails students in that way. I guess like speaking on when intervention does happen, how should someone check in on both the victim and the bully? Like, what does that balance look like?
I see you. I see you doing the reach. He ready. He got something to say. I'll let you go first.
Oh no, not even. I was about to go and chat. I could
Oh,
say something real quick.
he ready to go in chat. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Uh, for things that I've seen, right, when we talk about like that intervention piece, I come from early childhood education background, and our motto has always been, you check on the victim first before you check in on the bully or the aggressor, right? And the reason for that is because when you have kids that are displaying improper behaviors or behaviors that you don't see as necessary, remember, some of this is for attention. So now you're taking attention away from a person who is the victim to place it on one that's doing the aggression who was looking for the attention anyway. So you make them last. You go and you apply the attention to the person who is being victimized and making sure that they're okay. Then you go back to the person who's doing the wrong. So when you're tapping into the bully, again, my belief, again, and it's my opinion, but I know that there are some statistics and research that back it. A lot of bullies aren't bullying for no reason. It's coming from somewhere, whether it's deep down aggression and anger issues, whether it's environmental, whether it's things that they have seen and now they deem it to be okay because that is all they know. Some kids, all they know is violence. It's what they see every day. So to come to school and punch a kid in the gut, to come to school and throw a chair at another kid, that to them is their normal. But what are we as adults doing to check in on that kid to see if they're truly okay? Sometimes it is home life, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes the kid that's bullying in school was bullied at school. And their stance was, if I'm the bully, then nobody can bother me. So they took what somebody else did to them and now they've turned it around and made it their normal so that other kids don't bully them again. I think it takes us to really sit down and talk to a kid that's a bully to understand how we can best help them and helping them to understand that this is not normal. This is not what they should be doing. But how many of us are having that conversation? How many of the staff members are having that conversation? I think when we talk about like intervention, right, and depending on what school the kid is at and how this works for some of them, taking away kids that belong to staff or administration, okay? So your regular day-to-day kid that's showing up being the bully, here's what we know. They get a referral. They get suspended. Behavior continues. They get expelled. Where was the tell me what's happening with you? Can we talk about what's going on at home? Can we talk about whether it started or where it came from? Oftentimes, there's not that. It's straight to direct punishment. Why are we not having the conversation? Because if we can get to the root cause of it, now we can kind of intervene and possibly stop it from happening. So intervention takes more than just, I'm going to give you a bunch of repercussions for your actions. We really need to start having true conversations with the kids and finding out what's truly going on.
Because the real intervention isn't just the repercussion, it's finding out what the problem really is.
Can I add something?
Go right ahead.
Of course you can. Why is that a question?
I didn't know you guys were still talking and I can't see it on my phone. But I learned in class that there's something called positive reinforcements and negative reinforcements. And in today's world, we have to take an effect where physical violence has gotten intensified. So there should be real deal counseling before we go to expelling, because not only are we dismissing the kid's behavior, but we're also adding more fuel to the fire. So that results to more violence, and violence that could come to, like, you know, the shootings and the suicides and etc. So I do think that there should be more counseling for both the victim and the bully, because you are right. Sometimes it's for attention and sometimes it's at home, and you can't you can't dissect it because you don't talk to the child. And that's most of the case, is when you don't talk to the child, you don't really get the answers. And if they don't give you that that trust, like if they don't end up like putting that wall down, the adult end up gets upset because they expect like the child is supposed to immediately give them the answer on why they're acting the way they act. So I think that's what we're having a problem with adults today, because they're too busy like in their own system that they haven't really like uh I don't know the word for it, but there's no like evolution to their system. There is no like adding new rules to the book.
And I'm gonna add on to that.
True.
I'm gonna add on to that real quick, because with that comes the idea of a with that trust, right? I was about to add on that trust piece, because if you're giving all these repercussions and not trying to figure out what the root problem is, why should the child trust you, who's giving the punishment, but not actually trying to intervene? You're not actually trying to find solutions. Why would they trust you if you're just giving them this punishment and that punishment, but you're not trying to talk to them and trying to gain that trust? Because actively you're losing that trust while doing that. And B, with said counseling, it would help. It would help. It bring that barrier down, because they're already on tense when they get called to that space, knowing something's gonna happen. So they're already tense with you, and they're already untrustworthy and on guard. And you expect them to be off guard when all these times they've been here, they've received something negative, and you want them to immediately be on guard, not knowing what's gonna happen. So with that, I also say congratulate them for how far they come and what has improved. Don't just give the negative, give some of the positive too. Because with that positive, it's showing you're actually looking. You're not just judging based off of face value. Sometimes you need to dig a little bit deeper to actually get your answer, instead of just removing them from the case entirely and not making it someone else's problem. You don't need to make it somebody else's problem if it's just going to continue and get worse there. If it's going to get worse in a different environment, what did you do to try to prevent that? Because it's always multiple steps to all these tragedies. It's multiple things that added up to this. So what can you do to prevent that? Because preventing it, sometimes it's so simple, but they refuse to do anything, right? Because they're too busy in their own system. Like Anastasia said, they're not willing to kind of integrate some of the kids and some of the troublemakers, quote unquote troublemakers, in that system to try to figure out what's going on and why they're doing this. They're just upset that they're doing it, and they're not giving them an answer when they try to ask. But at the same time, again, you're just giving them punishment after punishment. Why would they trust you if they're already knowing something negative is going to happen when they walk in that often, they walk in that building, they walk in that room, they think something negative is going to happen. They're not expecting something like that.
This goes back to that positive reinforcement that Anastasia mentioned, and
Exactly.
the positive reinforcement is definitely needed and necessary, because again, if we have a student that's vying for attention, right, we want them to vie for the right type of attention, not the attention that continues to draw that negative impact. Because again, the older they get, the worse those consequences become. But instead of, again, having that intervention, that piece where we are truly getting to the root cause of why they're doing what they're doing, we're just letting them slide by, and the behavior continues. It reminded me of one of the times when I think you were second grade, and the kid was bullying you. It started with him bullying you on the bus, and then bullying you at school. And you kept trying to like befriend this kid. And I was like, you don't have to solve his problem. It's not your job to solve the problem. It's your teacher's job to protect you. It's your principal's job to protect you when you're telling them that this kid is doing all these things to you. And I remember we ran into this kid at the fair. And funny enough, I kept saying and saying and saying, I'm like, there's something going on with this kid at home, because the things that he's doing is not normal. But again, that's the school's job. That's not my job as a parent. My job as a parent is to protect my child. We at the fair, the kid rolls up. Now, this the same kid that's bullying. Can I go with you? The kid does not know me. I've never seen the kid a day in my life, but recognize my child. And now you want to follow me around the fair. So I looked at the kid and I'm like, where are your parents? The parents were on the other side of the fairground. Okay. Mom is following around the boyfriend. But when I met boyfriend and mom, the boyfriend is like, I don't know why this kid keeps following me around. Send him over there to ride that roller coaster. And she did. She sent the kid away while continuing to follow the boyfriend. And I said, and this is why he does what he's doing. He's got to fight for the attention of his mama with a dude that's not his daddy that mom put on a pedestal. So I'm cool with my second grader walking around the fairgrounds unsupervised. You have no clue who I am, and your kid wants to follow me around. And she was like, he can go with you. No, he cannot, because I don't know your kid and I don't know you. And quite frankly, I don't want your kid around mine because your kid was bullying mine. So no, we good on that. Take your kid. But when we think about that again, like this goes back to why kids do what they do. It stems from something. It starts somewhere. And my heart went out to that kid because again, I'm like, he does it and it's no fault of his own. But nobody's really sitting to correct the issue with him or tell him that it's okay. Or tell him like he was probably looking for comfort in the only way that he knew how. And bullying other people led him to an office where he got to spend one-on-one time with somebody. That could have been a comfort for him. So again, we have to look at like, why are they doing it? How could these interventions truly work and help a kid who may be not protected feel protected? It goes deeper, y'all. It goes deeper.
And honestly, knowing that is insane because again, the school not trying to look into that is insane, knowing that it again is a repeated problem. He kept going in there, and you're just not gonna try to dig deeper at all. You're just gonna send him away. But at in that point of time, I'm pretty sure that school was probably just not doing the greatest, knowing the other things that happened with us that year. But I'm not gonna say anything about that. I'm gonna
There's nothing to be said. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
it's insane that they didn't try to look into that, especially because it's a second grader, it's such a young kid, and you see it's these behaviors just starting so early. You probably want to dig into that before it gets even worse and before that deepens into something that could possibly become more dangerous for other students.
Honestly, in my personal opinion, the younger they are, the better the interventions can work. It's when they're older that it's harder to intervene. Because when you look at older kids, these are things that have transpired through the years. These have become habits that are now deemed as okay or necessary for me to survive. Bullying sometimes is a survival mechanism. So I have to do this thing in order to survive. I got to be seen as the baddest kid because this is my way of protecting me. Even though in that moment in school, there's nothing for you to protect yourself from. But because it's what you see and what you know, you feel like it is. But interventions at young ages are like the best time to catch them. The earlier, the better. Because if we catch it early enough, we can help them create better habits, better systems, and understand that what they're doing is not okay.
Do you think that I guess once a kid is older, like maybe like middle, high school intervention, like you can try it, but it's just probably better to resort to and be like, okay, this kid has to get suspended, or like, do you feel like what's the balance with that, I guess, once they're older?
I mean, intervention is always necessary no matter where we are, right? No matter what age group it is. Even intervention with adults is still necessary.
True. Mhm.
But again, I feel like disciplinary action is the easiest thing to pass down
Mhm.
without conversation. And we also know that depending on staff, they pick and choose who they want to intervene with versus who they don't.
Mhm.
So you can have one kid who's been a known bully, and because he's been a known bully, the teachers may not like him, right? So they're going to be less lenient on this kid because every teacher has talked about this kid. So now nobody wants him in their room or her in their room. And because that's a thing now, the minute the kid does something wrong, they automatically get the referral, they automatically get the suspension, they automatically get all the disciplinary actions. Now you get another kid who are teachers like, oh, but we know their story and we want to help. These are the kids that get all the passes. But why doesn't every kid get that same level of interaction, that same level of engagement, that same level of let's dig deep and let's figure out what's happening? Why don't you know that kid's story? So it depends. Now, to me, every kid is worth you understanding their story. But to some staff, every kid is not worth them knowing their story, because if I don't like you, I don't like you. So I'm not going to spend my time trying to figure out why you do the things that you do. I just know you need to be gone. And that happens a lot. So, yes, intervention can happen on any level. But when they're older, what's the likelihood of them trusting you if they already know that you've written them off?
And that's what I was saying earlier. If they know that the disciplinary action, all the negative stuff has come from that room, why would they trust you when you try to intervene now? Why would they immediately try to trust you? And why are you frustrated that they don't trust you when you've given them so many disciplinary actions beforehand? You giving them that negative experience, and they associate the negative experience with that room. It's
Yep.
like training a pet. Now that after you give like a buzzer and they get the treat, they now associate that buzzer with that treat. They now associate your room with disciplinary action and negativity. So why
Yes.
would they trust you in that room when they associate that room with negativity?
And I love that, because even to this point, right? So y'all know I work inside of a school. And so I've had a student. He wasn't a bully. He was a class clown. But also a class clown that, depending on the teacher, they couldn't stand to have him in their room. This is a student who might have been like 2 to 3 grade levels behind, older than most. Now let's talk about why this kid was the class clown. He wasn't a class clown because he thought he was funny all the time. He was a class clown because if I joke on myself being a failure, what gives you the room to joke on me? So the kid did stuff to get attention because of embarrassment. He was embarrassed that he was 3 grades behind. He was embarrassed that he was the oldest kid in his class. So rather than a teacher taking the time to sit and have that conversation, well, I can't say rather than a teacher, because some teachers did, but there was a teacher in particular that used to always call him out and single him out and do things to intentionally embarrass him. Why would he trust you? Why would he come to you and tell you that something is wrong? But then let's talk about that too. Even if he went and said it, would the teacher really care? So it becomes a twofold thing, right? when we talk about those interventions, if you're going to sit them down to do intervention, you got to really care. It can't just be a thing that you're checking off on a box to say, I sat down to intervention with a kid, but I kind of didn't care what was really happening because the kid's a bully. You got to really care, and you got to be ready to really do the work, because kids read you like a book. They know if you care, and they know when you don't care. Your body language tells it all. Your interactions tell it all. So they're gonna deem it however they see it, right? They're gonna call it what it is. So if they don't feel like they can trust you, and they don't feel like if they say like what's really happening, anything's really gonna change or happen for them, they're not gonna talk. And rightfully so.
And I'll even say, knowing with that interaction and them reading that body language, a lot of the time, if you look at what they do with other people and other teachers, you can tell that they don't trust you based on what they do with you. So even then, you can make that reading without you even having to have that conversation with them, without them having to tell you up front, because their body language also says it all. It's the same way they can read you, you can read them. You just have to learn how the student is normally. And with teachers, that's almost the easiest thing ever. As you see them in the class every day, they probably hanging out and talking with other people. You can tell the people they trust and the people they don't. Now let's take that and let's translate that to you. Are they exhibiting that same language? If they're exhibiting, let's say, conflicting behaviors with that, then you can tell they don't trust you with some things, especially not deeply personal things. Even though you want to help and you're doing all this, why would they trust you if you're actively feeding into that?
It's true. We have time for one more. Okay. What is the role of community in supporting someone who speaks up?
The community is the outlet. I'll say, if it's not going to be in school, it will be the community outside of school. If it's not that community outside of school, it will be that community in school. No matter what, someone has that amount of care for that kid to try to dig deeper and figure out the problem for that behavior to stop. Now, what it really comes down to is the communication. Do they know that it's happening? Do they know the behaviors that they're exhibiting? Do they know? Do they know it's even happening? Do they know who it's happening to? Do they know the type of person that they would normally do? Do they know the normal behaviors of this kid? Because if they know that it's happening, they could probably help exhibit with the school why it's happening. And they could give that extra help to the school to help intervene and prevent that behavior from furthering with that.
I see community plays a really big role. Why? Because a lot of times, even though bullying happens inside of school, a lot of bullying happens outside. And oftentimes it carries over, it spills over into the outside. So think about like community kids that are on the bus, kids who play basketball together, kids who meet at the park often. And then you add in cyberbullying on top of that, and all those things are your outliers of school. How community can help and how community can play a significant role, having conversations like these and letting kids know that it's okay to speak up and that it's safe for them to speak up and share when someone is bullying them. Having conversations with the bullies, you know, what can you do to help support the kid that's the bully? How can you dig a little bit deeper to understand their why? I feel like there are so many opportunities for community to step in, but I think the biggest piece is allowing students who are being bullied to understand that you are a safe space for them. Because kids who are getting bullied sometimes begin to feel like their words aren't enough. And then they start to feel unsafe, whether in school or out of school. So I think community can play a major role by allowing students to know that it's okay to talk. It's okay to say who's doing a thing and who you've told it to. Because I think that's another thing. Sometimes kids feel like when they tell their teacher, well, I don't need to tell my mom because I told my teacher. No, tell your mom and tell your mom the name of the teacher. Because we need to hold the teacher now accountable for those actions, right? So I think our biggest role is support as a community, supporting our victims of bullying. And then if we know the bully, how do we help support that bully and engage with them so that they know that what they're doing is not acceptable behavior? Because here's another piece to that, right? Sometimes your bullies are sitting on sports teams. They got coaches who are supposed to be mentors for them. Coaches, are we doing our part? Mentors, are we doing our part? Are we calling it like we see it? And a lot of times, as the coach, as the mentor, even as the church leader at the church, you see the aggressive behavior, whether it's from that kid or from the family members that the kid lives with, or from the community that the kid sits in. Are we truly addressing it when we see it to let that kid know that their behavior is not okay? So honestly, it's a call to action for all community members, all community leaders. When you see something, say something. That's how I feel like community can be involved. I love it. These were some tough questions.
We ran through like 5.
But I think very needed and necessary questions. I think having more conversations like these can definitely help our students understand bullying, and our students talk more about bullying prevention and how they can be involved and how they can help. But speaking up, it definitely matters. So before I go into my spiel and start sharing what's coming up this month, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing youth leader here to deliver that special public service announcement for Bullying Prevention Month.
Look, y'all, it's Uncle Licious back. You know, it's your uncle. It's your young uncle out here. I'm telling you, I'm a junior youth program ambassador with Such Foundation. Bullying don't define you, and it don't got the final word. Whether you've been hurt by others, witnessed bullying in silence, or felt unsure about how to step in, remember, you got the power. Power to speak up on the bullying, power to protect your peace despite said bullying, and the power to choose kindness even in difficult moments. Bullying prevention ain't just about stopping the hurt. It's about building those environments where everyone feels safe, seen, and supported. That work starts with us, and it continues every time we choose empathy over judgment and courage over silence. No matter what you've been through, you're not alone. Even here, nobody here is alone. And I know if no one here is alone, you ain't alone. You are worthy of respect, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who lift you up and not tear you down.
Come through, Ambassador, with your PSA for today. I love it. I love it. So for our upcoming events, y'all, if you missed last week's Color of You workshop, we had an amazing time. We painted and it was fun. It was a blast. So upcoming, we have on November 1st, Barrier Talks, which is our focus group that is geared towards community partners. So again, as we're sitting here talking about ways that the community can be involved, community, this one involves you, right? So faith-based leaders, barbers, coaches, mentors, tutors, stylists, all of you, we need you guys to come in and talk to us about how we can help benefit our kids, our youth, on their mental health journeys. We want to hear what you're seeing, what solutions you think can help them. This is such a powerful conversation, and it again is gonna end with you guys. We've done it now with our parents, our youth, and we've even done it with some of our behavioral health professionals. We now want to hear from you. What are some of the things that are happening within your community? So in order to see what events we have coming up, head over to www.stepsfoundation.org/events. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook for updates, stories, and more ways of getting involved with our organization. So, to every teen that's listening tonight, your voice matters. Your feelings are valid. And even if the world hasn't always been kind to you, you have the right to be treated with dignity and care. Bullying prevention starts with conversations like these and continues with the choices that we make each day to support one another. I thank you guys for being a part of this month's Talk Tuesday series. So keep showing up for yourself, keep speaking up for others, and keep believing that better is always possible, because it is. As always, stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep leading the way. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Talk Tuesday.